to comfort a very distraught, just so sad Mary Margaret. We do also see August adding pages to Henry's book that I guess he took from Henry's castle before it was torn down. It does get back to Henry in this episode, but what are you doing with that? Catherine Nolan decides to leave for Boston on her own. If David won't go with her, if David is not happy with her, she
dies, doesn't she?
And she leaves a letter to David telling him that he can also be happy and that he should find that happiness with Mary Margaret. Regina breaks into the Nolan household and steals and burns that letter. And what happens every time somebody tries to leave Storybrooke? That's right.
I just want her to be happy.
Catherine crashes her car. But her car is found empty. Not a Catherine in sight. Bum, bum, bum. Emma Swan has to go confront David Nolan as he is a suspect in Catherine's disappearance. I would say understandably so, but there's not enough evidence to charge him with anything, so he is still a free man, which leaves the main suspect, I guess, as Mary Margaret. But Mary Margaret is very busy at this time. Putting a festival together. It's that time of year in Storybrooke, Maine. It's time for Miners' Day. A day and a festival to celebrate the miners. E-R, not O-R, like people who mine. There's mines beneath Storybrooke. But no one will help Mary Margaret with Miners' Day preparations because of that whole affair thing.
The way I'd be like, okay, so here's what's gonna happen. We can have a night's fair, or you all need to be her mistress.
Which means we get a lot.
But you can't have both. Okay, so I need everyone to raise their hand.
Which is
okay, who wants me to be a mistress?
Mary Margaret and Leroy. They are just so delightful together. I love Leroy. Leroy agrees to help, not even because he likes Mary Margaret, but because he really likes Astrid. Astrid is a nun. Storybrooke has nuns. There's a whole convent. And Astrid accidentally spends all of the nuns' money on helium tanks. They only needed a few for Miners' Day, and she did math wrong, and she's bought all of them. And rent is due next week. And if the nuns don't sell every single candle that they have made to sell for Miners' Day, Mr. Gold will evict them.
Who the fuck
Gold
like this?
hates the nuns, which is hilarious both with and without Enchanted Forest context. I'll give you the context soon, I promise.
I will say,
yeah, hot for
I
the
wish, I love...
Leroy, could you possibly pick anyone any less available?
Says the girl who went after a married guy?
So Mary Margaret and Leroy go door to door trying to sell candles, but nobody likes either of them.
Oh, either of them?
I would buy their candles. I would buy all their candle. Leroy even tries to sell his boat to Mr. Gold to get the nuns the money that they need, but Gold literally won't buy it because he refuses to give him money that's going to go to the nuns.
I love Mr. Gold. I love the Dark One from Once Upon a Time.
With the power,
okay.
property destruction, and electrical
He was
tampering.
funny. He was a funny guy.
I'm selling candles, sister.
Leroy makes all the lights go out at the festival, so everybody needs to buy the
Alright,
candles. if
he
they
was
want a
funny.
single
I
light
loved it.
source.
I thought
And
it was
Granny
hilarious.
lights Mary Margaret's candle for her, showing that I guess all is forgiven. I don't know. It's sweet. Here's that Enchanted Forest context that I promised you. Dwarves are hatched out of eggs.
Hello.
The dwarves in the Enchanted Forest come from egg. They're hatched out of egg. And there's no female dwarves, not a one. All the dwarves are male, okay? Every dwarf is boy dwarf, and they are hatched out of egg. And I don't know where the egg come from. Egg full human size, full dwarf size, not small. Full 6-foot egg size. Where egg come from? How get dwarf egg? Apparently, dwarves do not fall in love. They do not have children. So the egg, how egg, other things that we all know about dwarves. Dwarves are about the same size as regular human men, a little short. They're like 5'4", 5'5". Dwarves are born fully clothed. Dwarves don't get sick.
It's
Dwarves
called
are
magic.
assigned a single personality trait by a magic axe. They are named for that personality trait, and they are expected to abide by it their entire life. Like it's Divergent. Grumpy is not born named Grumpy. When he is hatched from egg and handed magic axe, the axe proclaims him to be named Dreamy. as his egg was covered in fairy dust and he was born full of dreams. Dreamy meets Nova, a careless, beautiful fairy that he instantly falls in love with. That's Astrid. Nova is Astrid. Oh, also the blue fairy, it leads the nuns in the real world. I forgot to tell you that. She's Mother Superior in the real world. The fairies all became nuns. I don't know why, but that's why Mr. Gold hates them, because Rumpelstiltskin hated the fairies. But it's really funny that that man just goes around publicly hating nuns so bad. Dreamy explores the outside world and ends up in a tavern where he meets Belle. When in her timeline is this? I don't know, but she tells Dreamy all about love. So it's gotta be after Rumpelstiltskin, right? Well, it's gotta be. And with his head full of ideas about love, Dreamy sneaks off to run away with Nova, and his brothers are also happy for him. But the blue fairy tells him that if they do this, if Nova and Dreamy go off together, Nova will lose her wings, that she will lose an essential part of her. And they also tell him that he's not actually in love. This is an infatuation. This is childish. This will pass. But I don't think he believes that at all. He just doesn't want her to lose her wings. Not for him. So he and Nova give up on their dreams, and he goes back to the mines, and in his anger he breaks his magic axe and needs to get a new one. And the new axe renames him Grumpy, because he's given up on his dreams. Hey, I bet you haven't guessed who Ruby is in the Enchanted Forest yet, have you? What? It was obvious. She was Little Red Riding Hood the whole time?
It was Agatha. Hi.
Damn right she was.
I didn't see you.
And Little Red Riding Hood is very good friends with Snow White. Little Red Riding Hood's backstory is pretty short and sweet. Here we go. So Little Red Riding Hood is a werewolf.
Woo.
But she does not know that because the red hood that she wears blocks her curse and keeps her from transforming. But one night she doesn't wear it and murders a bunch of guys. Does not remember it when she wakes up. Has no memories of this happening. And the way that the scene is set up by all of the viscera and things, it kind of looks like the wolf, the monster, was her boyfriend, Peter.
Peter.
So Snow White helps Little Red Riding Hood tie Peter up so that Red can watch over him until morning.
I remember this plot
keep
line.
him safe.
I remember this plot line. She eats him.
That does not
And it was so...
go
I was
well.
like, no, baby.
That awkward moment when you turn into a man-killing monster and you
It does not
kill
go
your
well.
man. Am I right? That's it.
Penny
That's it. That's her
Kakashi.
backstory. And in the real world in Storybrooke, Ruby quits her job at Granny's and wants to leave town because it's gone so well for everyone else who's tried to leave.
Please
but
let them
Emma
leave.
and Mary Margaret actually convinced Ruby to just stay with them for a little bit. If you're arguing with your grandmother, you don't have to leave the only place you've ever known. You can just come crash in my apartment. It's okay. Henry tries to help Ruby job search, and she ends up being Emma's secretary and assistant for a little bit. I didn't know sheriffs had those. But Emma sends Ruby to go check out the scene of Catherine's disappearance. And Ruby is drawn to a spot. She doesn't know why. It's these extraordinary senses that she never realized she had. And she finds a box containing a human heart. This box is Mary Margaret's old jewelry box, and it has her fingerprints on the outside of it, clearly set up to say, Mary Margaret did this. She took out somebody's heart, put it in a box, and then buried that box. If this really was Mary Margaret that did this, what a weird way to do a crime, huh? Didn't even put on gloves? You used a box that is clearly yours? Ruby realizes she actually wants nothing to do with a career that involves opening boxes full of human hearts and goes back to work with Granny, who tells Ruby that she wants Ruby to take over the business someday. That's why she pushes her. The episode where we get Little Red Riding Hood Ruby backstory, where she becomes like an actual character with thoughts and feelings and wants and desires, suddenly she's fully clothed. The whole time, the whole episode, she's very clothed. She's got a really distinct sense of style, which she's had at bits and pieces over the season. Occasionally, she wears full pants. But all of a sudden, when we let her talk, that's when we let her... I'm happy for her. I'm happy for her. It only makes me mad because I really love her. I just want her to be treated well. So David is experiencing new and more memory loss. All he knows is he's looking for his wife, which is fair. He's looking for both of them, technically. But now people think Mary Margaret disappeared Catherine, so she's taken in for booking and questioning. She has mugshots now. Emma is looking for evidence that Mary Margaret didn't do it because she fully does not believe that Mary Margaret is capable of doing something like this. So she searches the apartment that they have been sharing, where Henry finds her. He ditches school. I guess who's teaching him? They gotta have substitutes in Storybrooke. Henry ditches school. And they search the apartment together, where Emma finds a hunting knife beneath the floorboard that could have been the murder weapon. How did it get there? Mr. Gold tells Mary Margaret that he will be her legal counsel, and when she says that she can't pay him, she's a school teacher, she doesn't have lawyer money, he says he doesn't need anything from her. Don't trust that. We should all know better. Disregarding the fact that he's technically Rumpelstiltskin. She doesn't know that. You just shouldn't trust Mr. Gold like that. Henry, for his part, fully believes that his adopted mother framed his teacher for murder. And that's the evidence he is hunting for. He steals Regina's keys, which proves that she has a key to Mary Margaret's apartment and could have planted the evidence and stolen the jewelry box at the same time. That's pretty damning. Emma receives back DNA proof that the heart in the box is Catherine Nolan's. And because of that, the case against Mary Margaret will continue. She's like the only suspect right now because of how obvious and blatant the evidence they have discovered is. Emma does discuss with Gold that Emma also believes Regina framed Mary Margaret. She doesn't have proof of it. She does believe it. While everybody else is trying to solve this crime, David Nolan undergoes hypnosis with Archibald Hopper, to try and remember what happened the night that Catherine disappeared. Because his fancy new memory loss, he doesn't remember the night at all. Instead of remembering what happened in Storybrooke, he unlocks memories of the Enchanted Forest and remembers himself yelling, "Don't kill her," to a woman that looks just like Mary Margaret, but with long hair. So he asks Mary Margaret, "Did you kill my wife?" She doesn't take it well. And then, alone in her cell in the sheriff's office, Mary Margaret finds that somebody has left her a key. And she lets herself out and runs into the woods. So where did that Enchanted Forest memory that David just got back, where did that come from? Let me tell you about it. After Snow White erased Prince Charming from her memories, the dwarves staged an intervention led by Jiminy Cricket, because ever since she drank that potion, she's been really mean to them.
You broke my mug!
You're lucky it wasn't that mug you call a face. Snow White decides that what she needs to do is kill the source of her anger, the evil queen, so that she stops taking those feelings out on the dwarves. And Grumpy goes, "Oh, what if we did something else?" So Grumpy takes her to the only person.
Honestly, a lot of problems would have been solved if they just killed Regina.
Hoping that maybe Rumpelstiltskin can reverse the effects of that forgetting potion. Turns out, no, Rumpelstiltskin cannot reverse the effects, and Snow White says that's fine. She actually agreed to come here and meet him because she just wanted to get something from him. She wanted something that could kill the evil queen, please. Thank you. So Rumpelstiltskin gives her a bow that never misses, and she's off to the races. And what does Rumpelstiltskin want in return? Nothing. Don't trust like that. And then Prince Charming goes to the only person anyone ever goes to. Say it with me, Rumpelstiltskin. And he learns that the only way to reverse the potion that Snow took is True Love's Kiss. And he also learns that if Snow White does successfully kill the evil queen, then her heart will be evil forever.
Okay, let's not act like...
That's not how it works. Charming does find Snow White before she gets to Regina, and he kisses her. But she does not know who he is, and certainly is not in love with him. So Snow ties him to a tree, and Jiminy Cricket finds him and breaks him out. Okay. So then Charming finds Snow White again, just in time to thwart an assassination attempt.
Let her kill Regina.
Taking the arrow himself. He says he couldn't bear to see her heart darkened, and she kisses him.
I love Regina, okay?
Because they're in love. And
I love Regina.
Nowhere,
I do.
King George appears and drags Prince Charming away. And Snow White swears that she will find him. I will always find him. These two are always yelling about finding each other, and I love that for them. I love the determination. I just think, maybe,
stop losing
the
each other.
universe is telling y'all something. So that's the memory that David got back, was at that assassination attempt. He's like, don't kill her. It was about Regina, not about Catherine Nolan. Deep in the Enchanted Forest, I believe long, long before anything else we have discussed about the Enchanted Forest to this point, there is a man named Jefferson. Sebastian Stan. Sebastian Stan is in this show? Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is a pre-Marvel Cinematic Universe. Sebastian Stan. Barely pre-Marvel Cinematic Universe. This was 2011. Sebastian Stan playing Jefferson. Okay. Jefferson is a single father. We meet him as he's playing with his daughter Grace when the evil queen Regina shows up to ask for a favor, offering him a lot of money to help her retrieve something. But he says no, because he has a daughter to look after now. He does not want to be involved in evil queen shenanigans. Thank you. He's very happy. Later at a market, his daughter Grace asks for a stuffed rabbit that she sees, but it is too expensive and Jefferson can't afford it. Grace is super understanding about it. She doesn't push. She's not crying. She's not visibly upset. She's very mature. And after the pair leaves, the stuffed rabbit seller reveals herself to be the evil queen in disguise, just trying to make Jefferson feel bad about not being able to provide for his daughter, even though they are literally doing just fine. And she wasn't mad. And Jefferson makes his own rabbit doll for her, by the way, because he's perfect. And yet, Jefferson leaves his home behind, promising Grace he'll be back. He leaves her alone. She's like 11 or 12, but he leaves her alone in the woods. But he does promise that he'll be back. And we all know what that means for him. So Jefferson goes to Regina, bringing with him a magical, realm-traveling top hat, revealing himself to be the Mad Hatter. I forgot to put him on the board. I was too busy yelling about
I
him.
will say the problem with liking Regina is you have to admit she just likes causing problems. There are 1,000 ways. She could have easily just brought back. She could have taken a bug with them, like snatched a bug on the way out. She could have told the Mad Hatter, "Hey, I'm trying to save my dad. We need to bring someone else and leave them behind." But okay, we'll just grab a bug. That counts. But like, no, she wants everyone else to be unhappy. It's like it's not like she's just like, oh, I had to choose you between you and my father. Like, she could have easily been like, oh, we need to bring someone. All right, because I'm not leaving my dad behind, and if I had to leave him behind, I'll leave you behind. So you better bring someone else we can leave behind. Like, she could have easily not left the Mad Hatter behind, but she chose to, and that's why. Like, she chooses to be evil. She doesn't have to be evil. She chooses to be evil. And that's why it's so hard to like her, because it's like, babe, choose better. Like, what do you mean you're gonna yell at him? He's like, you shouldn't have left her. I'm trying not to. You took me from her. Like, dude, let me go back to my daughter.
Now. So the Mad Hatter and the evil queen go to Wonderland. The Mad Hatter does not like Wonderland, but he is willing to do this so that Regina can get something. She's an errand to run. The rule of the hat, Jefferson lets us know, is that however many people enter the hat to go realm traveling is how many people can leave. And in fact, how many people need to leave. So if 2 people go through, 2 people must go back. You can't take more, but you also can't go back with less, which would be fine if the thing that Regina needed wasn't her father. But lo, her father Henry is here. He was kidnapped by the Queen of Hearts. The plan all along was to abandon Jefferson, never to return to get him, so that Regina and her father Henry could make it home safely. They really set up Regina's father Henry at the very beginning to be just sort of a nice man who would do anything for his daughter and overlooks her flaws. But the more we see of him, what an inexcusable pushover of a worm. He just lets them leave Jefferson there, says nothing. No qualms. Jefferson is yelling about his daughter, about how Regina knows that his daughter's waiting for him. And Henry is just like, it's not my problem. I do miss my house. Sir, I just wish he would ever speak up. The Queen of Hearts has Jefferson beheaded, but he survives, and his head is reattached right away. So I don't really know what the point of that was. And Jefferson is left to try and get it to work, to make a new hat that can get him home in an endless room filled with his fruitless efforts.
Does that
but hey,
is
we
that
have not seen
implying
this man in Storybrooke before.
that the Mad
It's not
Hatter
like this is
created
giving
the
us
magic hat
context
in
to
Once
a
Upon a
man
Time?
that's been around. This is a new man. Where did he come from?
And then he
Emma Swan
swiftly
realizes
disappears.
that Mary Margaret is gone and goes to search for her in the woods, and in doing so,
Into the woods.
nearly hits a man with her car. That man, of course, is Jefferson. She says that she's looking for her dog and gives Jefferson a ride home to his very, very big, lonely mansion out in the woods. She goes in to see a map of the area to hopefully help her find her dog. And Jefferson drugs her teeth.
Oh my god.
She passes out. So this is why
I don't
haven't seen
remember
Jefferson
any
yet,
of this.
'cause he's a lonely, creepy forest hermit. Emma wakes up alone and restrained, but manages to break free and finds evidence that Jefferson has been low-key stalking her ever since she's arrived in Storybrooke. There's like pictures of her around town. There's evidence of her whereabouts and how she moves.
Oh.
While looking around, Emma also
Thanks
finds
for
Mary
coming back.
Margaret bound, restrained in a separate room, and unties her until
my
Jefferson
God.
finds them and holds them at gunpoint until Emma re-ties up Mary Margaret. Because Jefferson needs Emma to do something for him. Because you see, Jefferson has an extra special curse. He is living under slightly different rules than everyone else in Storybrooke. Jefferson remembers everything. He fully understands the horror movie that everyone is living in and has been living in frozen for 28 years. He is trapped in a land with no magic and no daughter. Because here, Grace is Paige. And Paige doesn't know who he is. She lives with two brand new parents. She's very happy, she is well taken care of, and she does not know him. He has all of his fairy tale memories. He remembers trying to get back to her for decades, if not centuries, driving himself mad, making hat after hat after hat, hoping to finally find the one that would magically get him back to her. And when he
Did he
finally
make the
sees her
first
again,
hat?
it's in a world entirely new, entirely unfamiliar, and she doesn't recognize him. So Jefferson demands that Emma Swan make him a magic hat so that he can take his daughter and go home. Emma is, of course, unsuccessful in doing this and does not believe a single word that Jefferson says, though I do believe she is getting suspicious that so many people seem to be on whatever train her son Henry has found himself.
They can't
aboard.
all have
Because
the
surely
same
Henry has not
delusion.
been talking to this weird, creepy forest hermit. So how did the weird, creepy forest hermit get to the same conclusion Henry did? Anyway, instead of confronting that, Emma manages to sneak behind Jefferson and knock him out with his own telescope, which is also where she notices a scar fully encircling his neck. Really cool that his beheading scar stuck around for him. It's actually a really sexy scar placement that kind of bangs.
Not bad.
I'm sure he doesn't like it, though. Mary Margaret gets free, knocks Jefferson out a window, and he vanishes into thin air. And all that is left where he supposedly landed is the hat that Emma was working on. So is he magic? Or Mary Margaret goes back to her cell where Regina is so mad to find her there because it was Rumpelstiltskin's idea for Regina to plant that key out of the cell so that Mary Margaret would escape out of her cell and then get in super extra trouble for escaping jail. That was the plan? But he's not Rumpelstiltskin here. Mr. Gold assures Regina that things will still work out. They'll still get what they want. These two are so silly. Regina and Gold, they hate each other so bad, but they will not stop trying to work together on different things. They just need to ignore each other. They need to move all the way across the earth. I know that they can't. They're stuck in Storybrooke, but I think they would just each be much happier if they sort of ruled their own separate small towns. Emma looks in Henry's big book of fairy tales and finds a picture of Jefferson with his daughter Grace, which should, to me, be the thing that breaks her and makes her believe in the fairy tale nonsense. I think that would be my breaking point. This man surely never spoke to Henry, is in no way influenced by the 10-year-old, still came to the same conclusion, and there is a picture of him and the daughter he claims to have had in this book. How are you still... Even though Regina can't get Mary Margaret in super trouble because Mary Margaret went back to her cell, Regina can taunt Mary Margaret while she's behind bars, listing all of the evidence against her, saying, you should just confess. Just say you did the crime. I know you didn't, but come on.
What do you mean you know it?
Doesn't matter. Just confess. We're gonna get you anyway.
I don't deserve this. I did not kill Catherine.
I know.
But you do deserve this.
Mary Margaret asks why Regina hates her so bad because she, in this world, has no context for why the mayor despises her. At the sheriff's office, Sidney Glass drops off flowers for Emma, assuring her that he's looking into everything. Emma still thinks that her and Sidney are on the same side here. And the district attorney arrives to interview Mary Margaret, and it's King George. His name's Albert Spencer here, but it's King George. Basically, Mary Margaret cannot catch a break. The two people in charge of if she's getting arrested are the people who hated her so bad in Fairy Tale Land. Even though
I'd just be, if I was like...
Emma goes clue hunting with August Booth, even though he has spontaneously started having some difficulty walking. And they find a broken off bit of shovel kind of lodged in the ground where Ruby discovered the human heart in Mary Margaret's jewelry box. And then they find the rest of that broken shovel in Regina's garage, courtesy of Henry letting them into her house that he lives in so that they could search the garage. However, when Emma comes back with a warrant to officially do a search, the shovel is no longer broken.
Of course.
The broken one is gone. New shovel, which leads Emma to believe that August is working against her. August is working with Regina. Clearly, he is not working with Regina. In fact, Emma discovers a listening device in the flowers that Sidney gave to her. So now she knows that Sidney's not on her side, and she goes to apologize to August, just in time for them and Ruby to discover Catherine Nolan alive in an alley. But also, it's about time that we figure out why Regina hated Snow White so bad. It's a really dumb reason. In the Enchanted Forest, when Regina was a young woman, her mother Cora was physically and emotionally abusive, but Regina still found joy in horseback riding and the stable boy, Daniel. They were in love. Regina can't tell her mother about their love because Cora wants to use Regina to climb the social ladder and have her marry up, as Cora is still upset that she was born a miller's daughter herself and wasn't born into that sort of social privilege. Regina saves a little girl about 10 years old on a runaway horse, and that little girl is Snow White.
I'm Snow White.
The beginning of the end. I would
Real
just
quick,
be...
Gotta talk about how
so
amazing the
pissed.
casting is on young
I
Snow White.
would be so pissed if
You
I was just like
couldn't
a
have
random
had a
civilian.
better
I'm like, what do
young
I have
Snow
to do with
White
this shit?
if you time traveled and
I
got
was
the adult
milling
actor
my
by the age.
grade.
It's crazy.
And y'all
It's
have
so
this beef.
good.
This had
King
nothing to do with
Leopold
me.
himself, Snow White's father, visits to thank Regina for saving his daughter, and he proposes to Regina then and there because he's been looking for so long for someone who could love Snow White the way that she deserves.
Baby.
And Cora accepts the proposal on her behalf. So Regina and Daniel plan to run off together, and they make out in the stables, and Snow White sees them running off in distress because Regina was supposed to be in love with her dad.
Your old ass
doing?
dad.
You and my dad are getting married. Regina catches up to Snow White and explains that she's in love with Daniel, not Leopold. And Snow White agrees to keep it a secret. And she also agrees that Regina and Daniel should get married. Because that's true love. Cora, an emotionally manipulative and abusive adult, asks Snow White why Regina has been so distant lately.
Baby.
She's talking up how much she loves her daughter to a little girl who'd recently lost her mom. And Snow White spills the Daniel beans. Because Cora just says she wants Regina to be happy, that she would do anything to make Regina happy again.
I'm gonna go.
And Snow White's like,
Bye.
oh my